We now return to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute, the radio show discussing the honest truth about Illinois policy and politics. Here's AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with John Tillman, President and CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute. And John, one of the planks in Governor Rauner's turnaround agenda is a property tax freeze, a real property tax freeze, people being taxed out of their homes. Now, this has been going on for a long time in Illinois and in Cook County, the metropolitan area, but it's increasing in pace, particularly in a tough Obama economy. And nowhere is this more difficult, more stunning, frankly, than in the Southland, in the South Suburbs.
When your taxes are more than your mortgage, something is turned upside down. And really what the government is saying is we are so incompetent at providing government services and governing that we've ruined the biggest asset that most people have in their family life, which is their home, and turned that into a negative.
I've spent some time in Bloom Township, in the South Suburbs, in Chicago Heights, running races, working in municipal government for a time for the city of Chicago Heights.
You meant political races, not like 5Ks?
No, yes, correct. Yes.
The athlete that you are.
No, there's a lot of people running around in the South Suburbs because of the crime rates. That's the other problem.
Right.
But the story of the deterioration, the marginalization of the Southland, South Cook County we're talking about, is really a story that's undertold. And I think it has larger lessons in terms of policy choices in the property tax area and in the economic development area, so many areas for the state. And to help us explore some of those lessons, we're now joined by Mark Glennon. Of course, Mark Glennon is the founder of WirePoints, wirepoints.com, and a managing director at 9th Street Advisors. WirePoints.com is worth checking out. Mark has been writing some excellent stuff on matters economic, from property taxes to pensions. And Mark joins us now. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Good. So you did this rather impressive prospectus, if you will, on 4 townships in the Southland, in the South Suburbs, and just what kind of economic the depth, I guess, of the economic death spiral they're in, just kind of to understand the extent of the problem so that we can talk substantially about solutions. Why don't you outline what has happened in the South Suburbs and this spiral they're in, how they got there, how deep it is, before we get to now what do we do?
You bet. My focus was on the effective property rates, and that's just a simple calculation of taking the annual rates that you're paying as a percentage of the true home value. And they've just gotten astronomical down there. I mean, it doesn't matter what party you're in or what your political ideology. This is really just out of control. People down there have known it for a long time. It has not been publicized. So averaging out the municipalities in those 4 townships, the average effective property rate is 5.23%, and significantly higher in some of those suburbs. Well, they've had other problems down there, of course, that have contributed to the spiral. It's traditionally been a manufacturing area. Jobs growth has been zero since the recession. So what has happened is, as home values have gone down and property rates have gone up, you've really just run into this truly impossible situation where people are stuck in their homes. They're underwater on their mortgages, and they can't sell because of these high property tax rates. So it's a death spiral feeding on itself. And folks down there will tell you that. I grew up down there. I've been hearing this for some time, but only recently have we had the data really to substantiate that on a complete basis.
And Mark, just to make sure people understand this, because they might not think about this in terms of their own home, what you're saying is that if you have a $100,000 valuation on your home, that's the actual market value of your home, you're paying $5,000 a year in taxes. Is that the point?
Yeah, let me give you a real concrete example. My dad passed away 5 years ago. We sold my parents' house 5 years ago for $125,000 to a moderately low-income family. Today, that house is worth $90,000, and the property taxes on it are $5,800. 6% or something like that. So they're underwater probably on their mortgage if they've got an 80% mortgage, and they're paying 6%. Who's going to buy that house? All the other houses in the neighborhood in Park Forest are declining, and so it's a tragic situation for that buyer and for really everybody throughout those suburbs.
We're talking about Bremen Township, Rich Township, Thornton Township, Bloom Township. These are, generally speaking, middle income, working income family levels. It's a diverse population, but increasingly a minority population. And they're trapped to some extent here. And just, without getting into too much math here, but some context, that 5% example you and John were just talking about, you're talking about people in these Southland communities that are paying tax rates, 3 times higher than the national average?
Over 3 times higher than the national average. And that's the residential rates. And of course, in Cook County, the commercial rates are 2.5 times that. So we're talking about 12.5% for commercial rates. Who's going to build a new property when you have to pay 12.5% per year straight off to the government?
And you've got Indiana right across the way,
right? With a clear comparison. And Mark, talk a little bit about. So we're talking about a symptom or perhaps a result of policy. What is it? Okay, so you talked about the outflow of jobs and the decline in manufacturing in the South Cook County. What's interesting to me about that at the same time was that there was a declining manufacturing in Southern Cook County. There was increasing manufacturing in Lake County, Indiana, over in Valparaiso and Chesterton and those places. So right next door, same weather, similar people, similar demographics. You have growth in manufacturing jobs while you have decline here. What precipitated this and started the death spiral?
Well, as I understand it, there's actually a statewide cap in Indiana on property taxes, and rates are under 1%. So actually, even for people who are still holding their jobs in the South Suburban community, many have moved over to Indiana just to avoid those property tax rates. But primarily, you're right, the jobs have moved over there along with the people. That's been a significant part of the problem, and I've heard that in emails and comments from readers of the article.
We're talking to Mark Glennon. He's the founder of wirepoints.com. Mark, I just wonder if we have to, if there's no way out of this other than doing what some of our neighboring states have done in terms of how we assess property value, getting away from this fractional valuation with this Byzantine multiplier that maybe you understand and 2 other people in the state understand, and going to true valuation, cap the valuation, until you either improve the property or sell it. So you really have true property tax caps and a valuation system people can understand.
Absolutely. And that process that you're describing is actually a whole separate problem. This whole thing is so opaque to most people, and the variance within these communities is staggering. If you look through the homes in Park Forest, for example, but many others, but especially in Park Forest because it's so easy to see comparables, people just pull their hair out. They don't know what their rates are going to be. They can't buy into this rationally. So the system, you're right, does have to be fixed. Now, of course, if you put those caps on and gave them a reasonable tax rate, they'd have a significant revenue problem, which is a separate issue, and it's driven largely by pensions, growth in salaries in the public sector, and as I understand it down there in many school districts, irresponsible spending levels.
Yeah, I mean, John, we've talked about this before. Your home is not your home; it's collateral for somebody else's pension.
Right, that's exactly right. And you have to, and eventually they're going to take it away from you if you don't make those payments.
It really is. You just can't describe it as anything except a taking, a confiscation. People, if they really understood the economics of this, you're promising a perpetuity to the government for twice the amount of your mortgage, and so you're left with some sort of residual interest on it that's way behind this, first lien that's going to come ahead of the mortgage, ahead of your interest for the government at an astronomical rate.
But let's make this crystal clear, though, because you've touched on this, but I want to put a finer point on it. The problem is, as you pointed out, is that they're going to have declining revenues if they start resetting the property taxes. And the reason they don't reset the property taxes is because the people in charge of these municipalities and these districts, taxing districts, don't have the political courage to adapt the public policies that would cut public employee pensions, public employee compensation, and the kind of out-of-control spending in schools and other things. What happens when you put a cap on, it caps the growth in revenues and then forces political accountability. When you don't do that, you don't get political accountability, and it begins to spin out of control. And what we're talking about in Southern Cook County is precisely what happened in Detroit. And so as they continue to depopulate in these communities, they're eventually going to go effectively insolvent.
I'm totally with you, John. You need to put some kind of forced cap, some mechanism that forces discipline in this and breaks the death spiral somehow. And that's a way to do it.
And that's why Governor Rauner's proposal for property tax freeze is important.
Mark Glennon, founder of wirepoints.com. also a managing director at 9th Street Advisors. Check out Mark Lennon's writings at wirepoints.com. Good stuff. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, gentlemen. Take care.